Alright guys, back to Unity. The next thing I want to talk to you about is Visual Studio. Visual Studio is basically your code editor, and in Unity what we have to do is we have to go to Unity, Preferences. Alright, then you go to External Tools, and see how I have External Script Editor selected as Visual Studios. By default I believe Monobehaviour, but you do not want to use that. Check on Visual Studio so that when you do your coding, you'll be able to access it. It'll just automatically open Visual Studios. Okay, the reason why, because I've had students mention, well, on the PC, they're already using Visual Studios. As of 2017, Visual Studio with Unity was automatically included in that install. In the next version of Unity for the Mac, when they go ahead and release the newest one for later on, they're going to pair Visual Studios. Monodevelop is kind of buggy, and they, I mean, you can use it, it might be fine, but once you upgrade to the Sierra OS operating system, you're going to run into problems. It's going to crash on you, and that's what I found out at home. So that's why I switched us to Visual Studio Basics, Visual Studio Basic, because it's going to end up migrating over when they do the next release of Unity for the Mac. Okay, so let's talk about, you know, how the scripts work, because I have my folder. I'm going to click on a script, and if you paired it correctly, when you click open, see how the inspector changes is now, and it gives you a preview of what the script looks like, and I click open, there it is. Okay, so Visual Studio Basics is really pretty easy to use, okay? Once you've created a script, and I'll show you, let's start with let me go ahead and create an empty script, okay? So here, if I go ahead and create C# script, I'm just going to call it test, because it's a test script, and then it starts with some default coding already that's provided for you. So when I click open, Visual Studio will open up some of this basic coding information. Okay, really the only thing you got to worry about is this window right here. As you're coding, you will see these numbers pop up telling you what line you're on. It automatically has some color coding to kind of help you out with the different parts of the script. Okay, so the thing is, when you are debugging, because whenever you type your code in, okay, because you'll have to edit this part, and then you'll hit this button here, and that's to actually run the script. So if I go over here, and I hit here, it's going to run the script. It's building it, and down here under the local part of it, it's clean. Okay, that's good. The coding's good. It's fine. If you have errors, it's going to either point them out over here after you run it, and you'll get these red little marks. Like, see here, let's do something simple. Like, I'll take away the semicolon. So if I do that and then I run the script, look at that. Warning, warning. And then you can see right here, there's like a little squiggly line. I need my semicolon. Put it back in. Run my code. It's clean. So, and then I hit Command S to save it. And actually, I need to, yeah, should automatic, yeah, save. I think, yeah, it should have saved. Okay, I hit Command S and then it saves. Okay, let's go over some of the basics of this script that is automatically started with you, for you by Unity. Okay, so Unity provides, or the Visual Basics puts in some basic lines of code. These three are, if you want to think about it, are like really big libraries. So you think about at your base schools, you have 2 high schools that feed into our school. Okay, so those 2 high schools have their own libraries. Then you think about, so one of these lines of code could be said, okay, that's Bradwell's Institute's library. Right here, we've got a library for Liberty County High School. Then you've got this library, and let's just say Liberty College and Career Academy. We had a library. We don't really have a library, but if we did, we would say this is the line of code right here to access those libraries. So these libraries have a vast amount of code and books. So the codes are books or functions, okay, which you guys learn from Code High School, what a function is, and then variables and things like that. So within those collections, those libraries, you have books that you're going to need to access to be able to get your game objects to work. This is C# coding. And so C# is an object-oriented type of programming. The reason why it's so perfect for game design is because, like, if you really, video games, it's game objects, and you're setting parameters, and you're saying, well, I want you to do this. Because of this logic, because of this reasoning, you will only be able to do this within the game world. And C# is really good about providing that for you. Okay, so, and now Unity does offer JavaScripting, but there's a caveat with that. The JavaScripting that you may have heard of with web pages, it is not the same kind of scripting. There's way more information with the C# scripting, and that's why we're doing C#. Okay, so the next part right here is something called a class. Okay, it is public. You have public or private. Okay, so public is saying that you can access this code from outside of Visual Studio, okay? So this code is called test, which is the name of the script. The class has to match the name of the script or it will not work, okay? It doesn't like that, okay? All right, so that public meaning that, and usually when you see this, it means that it's gonna show up in your inspector. Like, you'll be able to add it. So if I go back to my game here, into my scene, and I pull down the drop-down window, it just means that you'll be able to add it as a component within the inspector. Okay, that's what I figured out, okay, just from trial and error. Okay, so you can add it as a component because it's public. Okay, next thing is monobehaviour. What does monobehaviour mean? Okay, it means that this script, because it's public, you can drag it and drop it onto a game object. So like when I go over here and I go to scripts, I can literally take this script. It's for a racket, which is for the Pac-Man or for the Ghost. I could literally grab it and drag it onto my game object, and it would accept that script and know that, okay, you want it tied to this game object, that script. Okay, all right, so back to Visual Studio. Next thing is, here's a comment. We know it's a comment because the forward slashes. You can also do / and asterisk symbol. That will comment it out in Unity. The next thing is a function, okay? Void just means that it's not returning a value, okay? It's not sending anything back, all right? So start is basically telling you it's going to start on the first frame. Okay, so a lot of times you're going to see these functions, and what it tells Unity as far as the scripting is, I need you to call this logic within these curly brackets. I need you to do it at the start. So if I type in, if this is my telling it at the beginning, this is from initialization. There's also the function for awake too, kind of similar. So upon the first frame playing, this line of code or logic will immediately start occurring, okay? If this is a void update, it is called once per frame, okay? Once per frame, and these games run at 60 frames per second. So it's going to run 60 times within a second. And then anything within the squiggly brackets, okay, that's going to happen each frame. There's also something called late update, which happens at the very end of your of the sequence. So that function tells it to operate at the very end. There's fix update, which is telling it to run that logic more than once per frame. So it's operating even faster, okay? So that's just kind of the breakdown. Your logic has to be in there. Now, I haven't gone over variables, okay? So if I go, okay, we'll call it an end on that video. So I just covered the default scripting that happens in Unity, and I'm going to cover a little bit more about scripting later on, but that's the basics.